So with the release of Stranger Things season 5, or at least the first chapter of season 5, people have been talking and memeing honestly a lot about Will Byers and the fact that he finally has something to do or is quote unquote useful to the group. And I wanted to make a video talking about Will and whether or not I agree with some of the criticisms he has faced as a character. And we'll just, I guess, get right into it. Because season 1 of Stranger Things was a monumental achievement in television, but also for streaming. I mean, it in my opinion, it literally made a lot of people I know get Netflix just because, people were talking about Stranger Things and they're like, oh, you haven't seen it? You have to see it. You have to get Netflix. And I've had family members that still have Netflix to this day just because of Stranger Things. So, I mean, it's no secret the smash hit that Stranger Things has become, and that's not what this is about, obviously. I mean, like I said, that speaks for itself. But the first season was an achievement in many ways, and also such a talented young cast of actors, from Finn Wolfhard to Caleb McLaughlin to obviously Millie Bobby Brown, and then you have Noah Schnapp as Will Byers, of course. However, he faced a lot of criticism because if you don't know, which hopefully you do, otherwise, maybe click off this video. But if you don't know, majority of, if not all of season 1, you could argue, Will is spent pretty much, not in it. He's in the season, and oddly, it's so odd because he's very much the focal point of the season. He's the heart of the season. He is the driving force for pretty much all of the characters, the main characters at least. And yet he himself is like basically not in it. And a lot of people say that, he did nothing that season because he was just trapped or captured and then trapped in the Upside Down. And then we move on to season 2. Season 2, we obviously got Will out of the Upside Down at the end of the last season, thanks to 11. And Joyce's sheer tenacity to not give up on her son. But season 2 faced a lot of the same criticism, only it was worse because he was in the season, but he essentially had no, how do I put that? Like no character almost. Some people argue that he was just kind of bland because Will was, again, a main focal point of the season. However, he was possessed, quote unquote, kind of sort of, by the Upside Down or the Mind Flayer. And he was a big plot point, and that whole thing was a big plot point. However, there's a lot of people that I have seen, that I have personally also talked to, that have found a lot of frustration in the fact that he still has basically done, nothing. He's not really, he doesn't really feel like the rest of the main group. I mean, hell, even, they introduced Sadie Sink's character, Max Mayfield, in this season, and even she feels like more of a character that's been lived in this universe. She feels like more of a character than Will, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And then we move on to season 3, which is a very unique season. It's a lot of people's favorite season, which is a stark contrast to season 2, which is a lot of people's least favorite, which I disagree with, but I could talk about that more in like a season's ranked video. But either way, nonetheless, we get to season 3, and Will does have a bit more to do here. Although people, again, still did not appreciate him as a character, and he still faced a lot of flack and a lot of criticism during this season, mainly for being annoying because he was trying to, he basically didn't grow up. He was still trying to play D&D, and he would get in fights with his friends about it, and they would kind of make fun of him for still doing, childish things. And a lot of them this was a turning point for the show because a lot of them were, changing in real life, obviously, clearly, but also in the show, they were evolving. And Will doesn't seem to be doing that. He seems pretty stagnant. Not to mention, he still has that connection with the Mind Flayer in this season, and he can kind of, he gets a little Harry Potter sense, when Voldemort's nearby, Harry can feel his scar hurt. Will kind of gets the goosebumps on his neck, and he can sense the mind flare. There's an interesting connection there, but it still was not enough to pull fans in and really appreciate Will's character. And then we get season 4. And season 4 pissed a lot of people off because it feels like, season 3 was a slight step in the right direction, but season 4 was a bit of a regression. Will goes back to doing nothing besides being annoying. People disliked the fact that he was so kind of whiny in this season, and he was like giving Mike shit for. It's kind of a lot of the same stuff in season 3, only with relationships this time instead of, childhood hobbies. And he gives Mike a lot of shit for being in a relationship with Eleven, which we come to find out there's another reason for that, which is very interesting, gives his character a lot more depth. But still, season 4 had a lot of people just unhappy with Will. People could care less about him. So going into season 5, that gave the Duffers a lot of work to do, because I personally do believe the Duffers are very plugged in to the social space. They're very aware of what people are saying, what people are thinking. And I think Will has always been a focus of theirs. So I personally feel that, them seeing all the criticism probably pissed them off, because I think they have been trying. And I don't necessarily agree with all the criticism, but I'll get into that later. But yeah, I think it gave them, something to go into this season swinging for. And boy, do they hit a home run, in my opinion, so far. Number one, they expand on Will as a person. They expand on his struggles from season 4 with being gay and with, self-identity, which is huge for... Self-identity is a huge issue for kids at that age in general, but especially someone who's different, especially in the 80s standards of, liking somebody of the opposite sex and feeling just very out of place from the norm, quote unquote. But not only do we have that, we also get the connection with the Mind Flayer and the Upside Down expanded upon. We get some added context to season 1 that will make you appreciate season 1 Will even more. And honestly, Will as a whole even more. And that's what season 5 does. It adds more context to his character. It adds a lot more depth. It gives him a lot of moments, a lot of really good ones, in my opinion, with Robin. And, he seems, it's like the perfect balance of still struggling with all the stuff he has been, but not being whiny as much. And I think a lot of people, it's clear now, if you guys haven't seen, there's a lot of memes, not even memes, I guess, but like fan edits of like, Will Byers seasons 1 through 4, and he's just like kind of, they make it out to make him look lame or annoying, and then it cuts to season 5 and it goes to like black and white, and he's just, obviously using his powers, which, if again, I already told you to click off this video, so if that spoils you, not my fault. But yes, Will also gets powers, which is another kind of nail in the coffin for cementing his character in this season to really come to his full potential. And granted, we've only seen half the season, but I think it's safe to say the Duffers would have to do a lot of wrong to negate all the good they've done for him this season. And I'm really happy with it, because sometimes, powers can be so odd. It can be done very well, and it can be done not so well. But Will resembles Harry Potter a lot, and that's, again, not really a hot take. That's something a lot of people have pointed out, but it's one that I love, because I love Harry Potter. And I think Will is so deserving of it, because this is where I'm going to get into my opinion on him. I've always actually disagreed with the criticism against Will in this show. I think Will has always been the focal point of Stranger Things. You could argue him and Eleven, but either way, Will has always been at the center of this. He's what started this, and he is what I believe is what's going to finish it. I don't think it will just be Eleven. Might not even be her at all. But nonetheless, I think he will end it as well. And I think Will has always been a complicated and interesting character for me. Now, this is an opinion, and I'm not saying this is objective fact, obviously, because I could definitely see the frustration with his character. I could see the annoyance with his character, I guess. However, I never really looked at it like that. I mean, I feel like all of the kids have had a pretty natural progression. For example, as I touched on earlier, like, season 3, they kind of switched to being more like they're outgrowing their hobbies. That's normal kid stuff, and it just feels very real. I think that's why a lot of people love Stranger Things, because it gives them that nostalgia, not just of the 80s, but also of their childhood. And what it felt like to be going through this stuff at that age. It's just very real. And Will has always been, tormented by his time in the Upside Down, because yes, he may not have been in season 1, but just because he was not physically in the real world with the other kids doesn't mean he wasn't. Season 5 obviously showed us he was doing shit, and he had a lot happen to him in the Upside Down, and that really molded him as a person. And then we get to season 2, and he's still being tormented by it, even when he's home. Like, he's still home, and he's still going through a lot. And I think it's easy to look at a lot of this and just say, oh, he hasn't really been used, or he has no emotion, he has no depth. When Will is not the same as the other characters. You can't say, I think Will does have emotion. I think he does have character. I think he has since the second season. I mean, they even talk about it when they're replaying his memories for him when he's, possessed to try to bring him back from the brink. I just think he is a different character from all the other kids. And that's pretty much, again, that's not really a secret. That's not a groundbreaking discovery by me. I think that's what the Duffers are going for. It's very obvious. He even talks about how he feels different, not just because of his sexual orientation, but also just because of his life, the life he's lived. And I really appreciate that in a character. I really appreciate Will as a character, and I think he is a good one for, kids, but also people to have, because he shows a lot of strength. Even before this season, before he got his powers, he has shown a lot of strength, because I feel like, if you're a kid and you go through half the shit he went through, you'd probably be in a psych ward 24/7. But, he is a very strong character, a very interesting one, and I'm just glad to see him getting the treatment and the spotlight that he deserves. But, again, that's just my opinion. So let me know what you guys think down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Why or why not? And let me know what you think of the new season of Stranger Things. Do you want to see more videos from me on that show? Because, if so, say less. I love that show. Any excuse to make more content on Stranger Things, I will take. I just don't really know, what kind of videos you guys want to see from that world. But until next time, I appreciate you guys sticking around this long, if you have. And I'll see you in the next one.